better get busy living or get busy rabbit fighting. Welcome to another edition of Rabbit Fighters, the podcast where three friends bite off way more than they can chew every week as we all try and get on the same page on a cultural touchstone that one or more of us is late to the game on. And we've got a controversial one for you this week, friends. We're going to take a near fatal dose of the water of life, turn our eyes a ridiculous shade of blue, process feces and urine in our thigh pads, and recite the litany against fear while we watch David Lynch's 1984 quote-unquote classic Dune.
Anyone who doesn't know those references has already left the podcast. What the hell are you talking about?
I implore you, stay.
You lost me at urine.
But got you back at feces. All right, I'm Joshua, but you may call me by my siege name, which is Usul.
And I am the Mentat Brian, just based on my eyebrows.
Huge eyebrows.
And I'm the guy. I'm the skinny guy who gets the mushroom tooth exploded in his face and dies with the eyebrows like this. But you can call me Greg also.
All right. Well, holy crap, guys! I can scarcely believe it, but we're only on episode number 5, and we're already committed to talking about Dune. Has there been a single episode to date yet where I haven't brought up Dune, or it hasn't come up in conversation?
By episode, do you mean day of your life?
Yeah.
Because no,
It's fair. It's fair.
The man,
Guilty as charged.
the man loves Dune.
he loves his Dune like an old person loves a supper club.
Or a nice butterscotch candy. It's like the same for him. You know, it's comforting.
That steak was so thick.
You got to get a relish platter.
But they cost too much. Why do the steaks cost $45 now?
I'd like a rhubarb old fashioned.
Buckle up, folks. It's going to be this for the next 45 minutes.
Or so. We're
All right,
about Dune.
This is a hard one. I feel like there's a lot on the line. I feel like my street cred. Everybody knows me as somebody who loves Dune. I feel like we really got to knock this one out of the park here, guys. So
we don't have to. we got nothing.
I got nothing to lose in this.
It's like if we did a Steely Dan episode, I'd have to answer to nobody.
Guys, we're going to talk about Steely Dan one day.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about Steely Dan.
On the list.
I'm going to change. I put it on the list. I want to talk about it.
All right. Well, for tonight, though.
Back to Dune.
We're talking about the Dino De Laurentiis dripped in Italian opulence, David Lynch, super weird guy version of Dune from the year 1984. Critically, it was a bomb.
But box office wise, it was
also a bomb.
Also a bomb. But in future generations, the admiration for it has not grown.
Well,
it is still.
I think it has cult.
Not a good movie.
I think it has a cult appeal amongst true blue-eyed Dune fans, and so that's why I put it on the list. I think it's worth watching. So, yeah, let's talk about Dune a little bit. So, Brian, I know you've read the book before.
I did read the book. The book's very good. The movie is not.
How many pages is the book, though? Isn't it like a monster?
It's like 400 or 500 pages. It's just really dense.
Yeah, it's kind of like akin to Lord of the Rings, right? There's a lot of lore and
universe building and languages and.
Is it older? Which one's older? Is Lord of the Rings older?
Lord of the Rings is definitely
Lord
older.
Of the Rings is
totally. That's like the 40s.
I thought it was like 1400.
But to be completely honest, I only read it because Joshua wouldn't stop talking about it.
Shut up about it.
So if you know him or work with him every day, you're going to hear Dune references constantly. And then so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to finally dig into this thing and read it. And then I think some of it was spurred by the Denis Villeneuve version of Dune, which I think was coming, and then COVID, whatever happened. So I think I read it in sort of preparation for that. But I actually really liked it. I would consider myself a fan of the book. Don't see much of the book in the movie, but I mean, there's a few weird parts in there that I'm not really sure are in the book. But yeah, a fan of the book, but the movie's a lot. It's a lot of shit.
I have to say that like I admire your commitment to friendship, recommendations because like
Yeah, hats
I've
off.
had people recommend albums to me that I haven't listened. I've had people recommend songs that I haven't listened. I've had people recommend tiny TikToks that were like 15 seconds that I haven't watched because I was like, I don't know, I got stuff to do. Reading a 500-page like Lord of the Rings style, like, fantasy adventure novel because your coworker, talks about it. That's dedication.
I mean, I'm also a nerd. I mean,
Yeah,
I
right.
read
This
Lord of the
is-
Rings. I mean, I like science fiction, so it wasn't like completely out of the realm where I'm like, no, I only read scholarly journals, but fuck it, I'll read Dune. Like, it's like,
Fine, I'll put down my subscription to the Lancet and read this.
no, I only read the New Yorker.
Well, Dune is widely recognized as one of the greatest science fiction novels of all time. It is on par with Lord of the Rings in terms of critical clout. Yeah, so I think that probably went a long way towards convincing Brian that he should read this, in addition to my incessant yapping about, the Fremen and the weirding way and shit. So,
I went into it understanding what's going on, which probably was incredibly beneficial. If you're going into this film with no idea what the book is about, I imagine that you're fucking clueless by minute 35. And either you've walked out or you're more interested in popcorn than this piece of shit. I mean, I feel like this is like, it's a mess. I mean, it's
as soon as she starts the monologue and they line up these planets like it's a science class or an astronomy class in high school, I was like, shit. Who is it? And it's the lady who does it is famous. Who?
Virginia Madsen. Yeah.
Virginia. I almost said Elizabeth McGovern. I almost said, but yeah, I was like,
which is really funny because she's
Virginia Madsen.
In the book, she has a little bit more of a large part, but in the movie, she's like in it for 45 seconds. She's in there for a split second with the Emperor, and then she's at the very end, and that's it. When you go on IMDb, Kyle MacLachlan, Virginia Madsen. Those are the two names.
Yeah, but you think it's going to be her movie because it starts out with a 4.5-minute monologue of her being like, and then one planet begot another planet, but the planets had the things that aligned together, and then the things had to align, and the planets are here thusly. And I was like, okay, shit. It's gonna be like a bad high school science class with fake British accents or something.
It's funny because that's the better version of the intro. Originally, they were going to go with like a 10-minute animated narration that sort of laid out the whole history of the future universe. And I actually kind of grew up with that version and kind of enjoy it, but it is really needlessly verbose and somewhat even more confusing. So they opted for the Virginia Madsen, little quicker narration there that sort of sets the stage for the rest of the movie. Not very well because it glosses over a lot and sort of assumes that the audience already knows something about the movie. So, well, unlike Brian, I grew up with this movie, and it was well before I actually read Dune. I didn't read Dune until college, so I grew up watching this version of Dune. I don't know when was the first time I saw it. It is, in retrospect, it is a highly inappropriate movie for probably a 10-year-old. It was about the time that I saw it, but I remember we had like the Dune board game, which came along with the movie, and so I had like that as a sort of like a reference sheet compared to what was going on.
Does it have like a megaphone when you want to blast your opponent? You go,
no,
and it knocks their piece over.
I have to look it up. I feel like that board game is probably like worth a ton of money now because it's like it certainly don't make it anymore, but I don't remember anything about it other than the freaky deaky drawings that were like illustrations of all the different characters. So I didn't understand any of the like the minutia, all the politics, any of that going into the movie. But for as a child, but for some reason it really stuck with me, and I really enjoyed it. It's like up there with like Willow and Star Wars from like movies from the 80s that stuck with young Joshua. So And it's what compelled me to, finally read Dune in college. Like I had a roommate in like my first or second year, and he found out that I like really dug this movie. And he's like, "But you've never read Dune?" He bought me the book and was like, "Read Dune." I was like, "All right." So then I read it and just like fell in love with it. I've read the entire series multiple times as an adult, and so I have an opinion about the movie before and after reading Dune. But I think for the purposes of this episode of the podcast, we're just taking David Lynch's Dune on the surface without anything else taken into account. So
I feel like I bring this up every episode, but do we need to give a brief summary of what, or just assume that it's too large to even try to, or to talk about?
I'll do it.
What
I'll do
is.
it.
Wait, all right, let's
Greg's gonna do
give it a
It
go.
starts out. This is what Dune is about. It starts out with a weird astronomy lesson from a pretty lady who has very little to do with the movie. Then we cut to a giant whale with a vagina mouth who spouts smoke out of his face. He's vaping, and he's threatening the emperor of everything, who you'd think would be a sort of unassailable, and yet seems to fear the vagina whale. The vagina whale and his punk rock followers,
his steampunk
keepers.
his steampunk followers who bust him through a wall or something.
You got the mop.
Yeah.
They listen with. Then the emperor of everything bizarrely tells the vagina whale his entire plot for the two warring tribes and how he's going to set them against each other and have one defeat the other. And then we have like people with giant eyebrows walking around and talking about plot points. A weirdly cast Dean Stockwell is a doctor with conflicted motives. There are there's an exploding tooth. There's a planet full of cocaine that's actually spice that worms love. That it never rains, but the worms seem to be very plump and full of sustenance somehow. And one side is fighting on the cocaine planet with the other side, but then there are these blue-eyed guys, and they come to overthrow
What?
the Harkonnens or something. And then there's a big fat guy who likes to suck juice out of people's hearts, and he's got really bad boils on his face. He just needs a good shower. And then also, Sting in a codpiece fights the lead guy for no reason. And when it's all over,
Wait, he fights the lead guy for no reason?
For no reason, because they've already lost the war, and the lead guy's like victorious, but he's like, but wait, now sweaty, oiled up Sting and I need a monkey knife fight to decide it for real. And then when it's all said and done, there's a dead Sting, and everyone has to bow down to their powers. And we realize that blue-eyed guys who can yell loud are the winners all the time, every time. If you've got
Won the hollering contest.
blue eyes and you're good at yelling,
Now I want
you're gonna win.
I want the Joshua version of what this movie is about.
I don't.
That is the real
You
reason.
want that.
Like I want the real plot now, and we'll see how they differ, how they actually differ from each other. I want the sci-fi acting.
You want the sci-fi? Okay.
Okay,
All right,
here's
so-
where your street cred is on the line.
All right, so Dune takes place 20,000 years in the future. In that time between now and 20,000 years in the future, humans have rejected technology and artificial intelligence to a large degree, which affects everything else in the story because they don't have like faster than light technology that they can really control. They don't have, they have this like shield technology which blocks bullets and forces any sort of warfare to be done with knives. Anyway, so they have a feudal form of government with the emperor and a whole bunch of different feudal houses that have fiefdoms on various planets. The good guys are the Atreides, the bad guys are the Harkonnens. The emperor controls everything except for the economy, which is run by the guild. They are prescient and they rely on the spice in order to be able to see, to a certain degree the future, and that's how they navigate space. And they have a monopoly on all space travel. You can't get anywhere in space without the guild. So So I misspoke before. They do have faster than light travel, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So the guild, they use the spice drug to be able to plot the safe path from one planet to another. But the spice can only be found on one planet, on Arrakis, also known as Dune. Very dangerous place, no moisture. So Harkonnens have been running the show on Arrakis for like 100 years or something like that. They got super, super rich off of it. The Atreides are getting more popular because Duke Leto is the man. The Emperor's threatened by this and wants to take the Harkonnens and have them fight each other and secretly back the Harkonnens and wipe out the Atreides because he's threatened by them. So that sets up the stage. There's also this Bene Gesserit sisterhood. They're witches. They use the spice as well. They've got this breeding program that focuses on women's lineage and psychic stuff, and they're trying to make a super being called the Kwisatz Haderach. And the son of Duke Leto is thought to be that guy. That's Paul, who in the movie is 25-year-old Colin McLaughlin, but in the book it's like a 12-year-old kid. And learning all the stuff that the Bene Gesserits keep secret, because his mom is a Bene Gesserit, and she's supposed to have given them a daughter so that they can like get that last link in the chain to get the super being, and then so they go to Dune. Atreides start setting up shop, but they're immediately stabbed in the back by the Harkonnens, who invade, kill everybody. Paul and his mother escape to the desert. They get friendly with the Fremen, who are the natives, so they start a guerrilla warfare. 10 years later, he pops up out of nowhere, and with the help of the Fremen and his new worm riding powers, draws the Emperor back to the planet because everything's gone to hell, and then unleashes, revenge.
Look how long it took to even explain that, and imagine walking into that movie with no idea.
Fucking dense. and there's crazy. There's so much like political philosophy and theology and sociology
that go right out the window when they film
and
it.
like cultural shit that they just it's just everywhere. It's like Lord of the Rings, where he bakes so much into it. It's impossible to do it for real justice on film. So let's break it down a little bit. What are some of like the egregious sins that you feel? You've already said like it's very complicated and you have no idea what's going on, but what else about this movie like rankled you?
Well, we've been touching on it a lot. I think the biggest problem is just the size, right? And you mentioned Lord of the Rings, like 3 movies to cover all that material. Obviously it's multiple books, but there's just no way you were jamming this into a 2-hour theatrical release where it had any coherent storyline. They're just like, the first half is slightly paced okay, and then the back half is just like, well, we're going to put this in 5x mode because there's no way we're going to finish this. This is like, wrap it up, and it's like, okay, fucking ride the worms, and Paul loves worms.
Well, you can hear
now.
I did the same thing. Like I was real heavy on the details that the first part of it, and then I got to like halfway point. I could see you guys tuning out, and I was like, okay, there's a knife fight at the end. So
to be fair, I can't imagine, obviously, David Lynch, and this was his. I mean, he obviously disavowed this film and didn't want his name on it and stuff. I mean, I know reading it went through a ton of cuts and, wasn't his version. So I can imagine his version would be better, but it sounded like De Laurentiis or whatever for some reason or other, I don't know why, had to get this chopped down to 2 hours and some change. I don't know. Maybe Joshua, you know more about that, but I don't understand if it was budgetary or whatever. They were just burning money, but like the fact that he just get this out into people, but in this fashion made no sense to me. But I mean, hence the box office bomb. But I don't know. It's really kind of bizarre that.
I just think it was they knew it was a turd just from the test screening.
Oh, really? You think so? Like,
and they just needed to cut it. Like he shot an extra, I think something like 30 minutes or something like that that didn't make it into the theatrical cut. And a couple of years later, made for TV, they tried they recut it together, and back in the 80s, like those Alan Smithy versions of movies where the real director didn't want anything to do with it, so they got somebody else to come in there and kind of try and make sense of it. So there's like a 4-hour version out there somewhere. I just think they just sort of realized this is a really hard story to portray on film, and David Lynch maybe wasn't the best guy for the job. And I think David Lynch probably realized maybe he wasn't the best guy for the job either. And this is why this is the one movie out of all the David Lynch films that he says he will not do any interviews about. he will not give any sound bites about. He refuses to talk about. It sounds like he has some major PTSD on the whole Dune subject.
Can you imagine a world? Because I remember you telling me that he turned down Return of the Jedi to do Dune. Can you imagine Return of the Jedi with David Lynch?
That worked out great for everyone in the Star Wars
the Sarlacc pit would have just been like...
Yeah, it's the sandworms are the Sarlacc pits. They're also like the Tremors worms. It's like this worm gets reused over and over again in all these different sci-fi movies. It's so funny.
Used brilliantly in Tremors.
Tremors is a great movie. I like that.
That's a great. I like that.
That's a B movie that isn't even a B movie. It's just like a B movie setup, but it's like good, you know.
And as a true Dune fan, I am legally obligated to let you know that was all stolen from Dune, like the Tatooine and the worms and the Sarlacc pit. And
it's a better movie, though. It's still a better movie. Maybe they should put Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward in Dune. Done better.
Yeah, I could go on forever on all the things that were stolen out of Dune, but okay, so it's an incomprehensible story with lots of plot holes.
You get the
even David Lynch didn't like it. Piss suits.
You got the piss suits. It's just like, okay, so you're going to this.
You didn't care for the still suits, huh?
Desert planet, and what we got here is these cool ripply black suits. He's like, oh, sweet, kind of look like it's kind of like a banging paratrooper in this thing, and he's like, but all the coils are full of your own piss and sweat and poo. And what you do is just slurp on it all day. And then I say, I'm losing you. I can tell I'm losing you. But no. But this is why they look so cool. You see half the crew is like backing off. Like, hey, you know what? I think I left my lunch in the ship, the big ship. I'm just going to go get that because I'm about to lose my lunch as you're describing this fucking suit that I'm supposed to wear.
Puke into the mouthpiece thing.
And he's like,
to recycle that.
He's like, you can last for like weeks on your own piss of shit. You're like, oh, can I? Sure I can, but do I want to? I want to sign up for this chicken shit outfit.
How else would you explain surviving without water on a desert planet, though?
How much in this thing is unexplainable in the first place?
That's true.
How about the orange Gumby suits that they fight in with the knives where him and Patrick Stewart?
That's the shield technology. That's 1980s technology.
Giant. They look like those sumo suits that they give people for like parties, you know, where they bang into each other, but they're orange. Patrick Stewart just like almost kills him just for the hell of it. He's like, Paul, it's time for your exercises. And by exercises, I mean death time. It's like, I don't want it. I don't want death time. He's like, it's death time. And they fight each other, and like he's like, see, I would have death timed you, and he's like, I would have death timed you down here.
Death time.
You're like, oh wow, it's kind of intense over there in the Atreides mansion.
It's got to be, man. They're going to the most dangerous place in the universe.
Going to the most dangerous, and then it pays off in the end. It's foreshadowing in the end when an oiled up Sting fights him in the final death chamber match thing. Which leads to my favorite part of the entire movie when he stabs Sting under the face and up into his skull, and he's lying there dead. And then he goes, breaks the ground, and the other blue-eyed Jesus guy who rides worms next to him goes, Moa deep. like, dude,
disappointed.
That was harsh. You have to break the ground, like.
That was Sting.
Also, we gotta have a foundation guy come in now and look at the foundation of this place. You can't leave the foundation with a big crack in it. It's gonna cost thousands.
I just want to say for the record that there's a lot I'm not saying right now because I just don't think it would make for a very good podcast. I could try and correct Greg on every single count here, but I'm not gonna because it's not entertaining.
Oh, deep. And then my other favorite part is when he's the guy betrays him. Dean Stockwell betrays the
Dr. Yui.
The Atreides. What's this guy's name? What's Paul's dad's name? Duke Leto. He betrays Duke Leto as he's like sort of dying, which takes a long time, like a really long, unspecified amount of time. He's like, here you go.
Because they were trying to subdue him. They shot him with a dart.
sorry I had to sort of kill you, but I'm gonna pull out your tooth with a fucking plier. And then here's what you do. I'm gonna put a fake tooth where your tooth was. And then when the Baron comes close, because I know he's a close talker, what you do is you bite the fake tooth and puff poison in his face and he'll die.
Come on, Craig. Do you really think the Harkonnens wouldn't have, in no spoilers, but in the Denis Villeneuve version, they've got Oscar Isaac completely nude because they're afraid of weapons.
Okay, not in this one. They're wearing piss suits left and right. Up to your eyeballs in piss suit.
Sting comes out and goes, I'll get nude.
They're like, no, we don't want you to. He's like,
Sting,
no, really,
no.
I'll get nude.
I'll get nude right now.
I'll do some yoga for you right here.
I don't even want the code piece.
Dream of spice, a dream of spice.
Sting, we're cool. No, put some clothes on. All right.
Why did I get to ride a worm? I want to ride a worm. I want to be a Fremen.
I want to play bass. I want to play bass on the worm.
You're not a Fremen. You're not a Fremen.
I want a few minutes because I want to have Joshua explain a couple things to me. No, in a good way. Like, so I don't understand. There's all this technology.
Yep.
And we're in the future. Why do we have human computers that are mentats? Like, why do they not just have computers? I don't understand why. Like, why do we need humans that do
labor,
this?
man?
So
there's these guys who drink this juice.
The Sappho.
Yeah, and they're essentially human computers, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what they're and they consult.
They're a replacement for thinking machines because the humanity has a religious intolerance of artificial intelligence because at some point in our future, in their past, humanity is enslaved by AI and they declared a jihad against it and overthrew them. And so that's why they developed these various schools. The Bene Gesserit came out of that time and the Mentats. So they do have a need for like the smart things that computers produce, but they're scared of computers. So they form these schools where humans basically develop their mind.
Okay.
Next question, Brian.
What's up with the vagina whale?
Yeah, the guild navigator thing. I get that one, but
I'll answer that.
Because those guys, aren't they in the movie, if you watch it, they're these things that look like Krang. Remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from like a brain looking thing?
Yeah, because they've been taking the spice for thousands and thousands of years, they've mutated over time. In the book, they're described as being more fish-like and like have like the because they float in the gas, and so they have like fins kind of and webbed hands and are just sort of elongated humans. But David Lynch went another direction with it, and the huge tank with the vagina whale, as you so astutely described them, which is really interesting because Frank Herbert went on record like he came to the set and hung out and helped with spitballing some ideas around it. He was a huge fan of David Lynch's version of the Vagina Whale Guild navigators.
Like, I'd like to party with that whale.
And to the point where
whale.
So this was 1984. So I feel like
how old was he
the
by then?
first 3 books, maybe the first 2 books that had already been written by then, he actually altered the description of the Guild navigators after the David Lynch movie because he was such a big fan of it. So I feel like that's one of the not rare. I mean, because there are a few missteps, the things in the Dune franchise that I would say are a little cringe, but for the most part, I think that's probably the big one. We're like, I think maybe you should have rethought that one, Frank Herbert. I like the original description of them.
Okay. Should I continue my line of questioning?
Please.
Okay. So
I'm here all night.
So I want to talk about the Harkonnens a little bit, the villain, the Baron. So having seen, I know we're not talking about it, but the more modern version of Dune, definitely less cartoonish than in this version, who's a guy that has boils on his face, cackling and floating around and drinking blood and juice, pulling heart plugs. I don't know. I don't remember any of that shit in the book. So granted they're a depraved family, but the take on what the Harkonnens are in this film is pretty
over the top,
laughable, over the top. Like the boils. I don't know if that shit is supposed to happen or what's it's
Sire,
very bizarre.
We have some Biore pads for your face. Wonderful.
The creepy doctor. Yeah, if you hadn't read the books, I can see like it's very over the top, very cartoonish. But I think that's probably like the one major aspect I would argue that David Lynch is doing that I think feel like works really well. I enjoy watching the Harkonnens. They are gross and just but they're a true villain that you can really root against. But yeah, there's a lot that got added in that is not in the books. Let's see.
Does he
the heart
fly?
plugs,
Does he in the
not
books?
there.
Does he fly?
He does
Okay.
fly. So the Baron Harkonnen is described as this. Who's the Roman emperor? Caligula.
Oh, Caligula.
Is very
yeah,
Caligula-esque ruler of this very polluted world, to the extent that he's just overindulged in everything, and so he's huge. So huge he can't even walk. And ostensibly in a society where they have the technology that he can be thin if he wants to, but he is purposefully overindulgent because he enjoys every manner of just depravity. And a lot of that stuff they could not do in the movie, and they did not do in the Denis Villeneuve version either, for good reason.
Rated X.
He's a pederast. He is just a vile human being. But in this society, he is of noble lineage, and so he's allowed to rule. And he brings in the dollars to the emperor through the spice trade. So he's allowed to exist.
He's a good earner.
Basically.
He's a good fun. It's like they always say with like horrible politicians, but he's a good fundraiser. He rakes in the fundraising dollars, you know.
And I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of the Dune universe, the Duneverse, if you will, is because the moral system is just so far away from what we're used to here on planet Earth in the now time. And it explains. Every planet has their own little fiefdom. They all have their own society and culture and rules, and they're all allowed to just do whatever you do. Just be true to the emperor, and you're cool. I don't know. I think it's an interesting aspect of the book.
I will ask this because in the movie, I mean, the emperor seems to have like basically no power. Like he just everyone who comes in contact with the emperor is like, "Hey man, I want something." And he's like, "Okay, all right."
So that's something. And
I bow to thee, whale man. Like, why is he bowing to the weird whale guy? He's the emperor of everything.
Yeah. Kraftwerk comes.
Virginia Madsen,
huge Kraftwerk fan.
Virginia Madsen told me that he's in charge of everything, and now the guys from Noi have scared the crap out of him. Like, I don't get it.
So he's the emperor, but he's not all powerful, and that's true to the book. But I can see, I think you're right for seeing that and being troubled by it in the movie, because they don't explain it very well in the movie. The reason the emperor is the emperor is not only he's of noble lineage and like has the throne by rights, but he's also backed by an almost indestructible army of super warriors called the Sardaukar, who they are the best fighters, hands down, ever made, and every royal house stays in line out of fear that if they get out of line, the emperor's going to send his army after them. One of the reasons he doesn't like the Atreides and is scared of the Atreides is because their warriors are starting to get almost as good as the Sardaukar. They don't explain that very well in the movie at all.
We should talk about the weird, like, so the Fremen. Paul has taught the Fremen the ways, the weirding way from the Bene Gesserits. So in the book, this does not exist, but the movie gives them some sort of weird vocal weapon.
The weirding way.
So when they shoot, they yell. But they shoot and yell, and it makes it more powerful, which makes no sense.
I can't defend that. I can't defend that.
Why don't they just get guns?
They have guns.
They have the shield technology, and that only the slow blade penetrates the shield, Greg. Bullets aren't going to do it, which means that hand-to-hand combat is the way to go. And that's why the Sardaukar are so powerful, because they're the best warriors. And the Fremen...
Nobody has it. I see the shield like once in that whole movie, and the rest of the time there's like a flying hypodermic needle that kills someone
Yes.
or that almost
The
kills
Hunter
someone.
Seeker.
Seeker, yeah.
The little lady who comes in is like, I almost got killed by the flying needle. And he's like, I saved your life. And she's like, I know.
It just
I owe you so much.
Just for reference, he's talking about the actress that also plays the principal in Kindergarten Cop.
The shit out mapes.
We should talk about at least a couple positive things, if I may.
I was going to suggest it, but you guys seemed really happy talking about the negatives. So
I'm in the middle. I feel like I'm kind of neutral on this, like between Joshua's obsession and Greg's clear out. Like, I just hates everything about this. I mean, at least I'm trying to find some silver lining and something in this, but I do think there's a couple things that are okay.
It's glowing that are okay.
No. I think the set design, at least in the beginning around Arrakis and stuff, is kind of cool. And the costumes, especially the Guild Navigators wearing like black garbage bags, like whatever.
Body bags. Used
their body bags. Okay.
Yeah. They found them in a fire station that was being demolished from the 20s. And they just reused them. And they were literally used body bags.
That's a boss move, I will say. Yeah. Use body bags as a costume for like the Noi guys. That's great.
Yeah,
that.
This probably costume violated some HR laws, but whatever.
So I mean, can we agree? I think some of the stuff is pretty cool looking. For the most part, Worm looked cool. Like, I think all the budget went towards the worm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yes.
I want to say it was the same folks who did E.T., like designed like the actual E.T. from the movie E.T., designed the Shai Hulud and the worms from Dune.
Okay. And then I think the soundtrack was decent. Toto doing the entire soundtrack, but it's not bad. It's actually, it's kind of like the Warriors that we talked about in a previous episode. Like, it's kind of very similar in a sense, but yeah. I thought the soundtrack was kind of cool. Like, so those are my two redeeming qualities, other than the story itself. I do like in its entirety, but again, we're just talking about this interpretation of said story, which is pretty lackluster. But I just thought of a funny imagery in my head, which is the Kraftwerk guys just hanging out in the desert with all those like thumpers, like just
it's just like, you guys call them worms? No, they're just having a party.
No, they're high. The spice are high.
The worms are incidental. They're huffing the spice and unting to the worm collar.
Okay, I don't think I've heard. I don't think I've heard Greg say one positive thing about this movie. And I feel like
we are calling the worms a thumper.
We are having spring awakening in the desert. Yeah,
we must dance. They have a boombox, a keyboard, a guitar.
It's the 80s.
I'm so tweaked out on spice right now. How about you? I can't even remember my name. Is my name a weapon? I can't remember. Don't say your name, because it could be a weapon. We could all die. Wadib. Ah! All died.
Okay. Let's get this train back on track here.
You want me to come up with something positive about the movie, right?
Yeah. Is there anything redeemable about this movie? You can answer no, but I'm just curious whether there is.
It isn't the special effects, because those are hilarious. It's just like a Kleenex box with orange, wrapper on it going, meow, 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 like landing in the desert. You're like, wow, that was like Ed Wood style, like remarkably crappy sci-fi spaceship. I think it was like literally a Kleenex box. But I mean, like, I think some of the costume design is cool. I think some of the set design is cool. I agree with Brian. Some of like when the German krautrock dudes bust in with the whale. I'm like, the whale's like, whale pod. Not to use a pun, I guess.
It's like a fish tank.
Whatever the hell he's in. I was like, that's pretty cool. It's kind of this like, obelisk thing with like, whale dude in it. That was pretty cool. Um, I think Patrick Stewart does a passable job.
Passable.
Yeah. Let's see. The worms.
Really
The
digging hard
worms
here.
are the worms are good. The moment when all the guys climbed to the worms, I was like, hey,
Greg's like, well, it certainly was a movie.
something's happening here. I mean, I'm grasping for straws, man.
We didn't even talk about the the little girl.
the daughter, the sister.
My brother's gonna come.
She's just,
Creepy little girl.
he sends his little sister to the head of the universe.
Yeah.
He's like, I know what to do.
Send my sister.
I'll set the heads of the most brutal armies in the galaxy. I'll send my tiny little sister in to like taunt them. And
To be fair, she's very creepy.
she is,
So-
but they're very deferential. They're just like, what? She's just taunting us, and what are we gonna do? You think they would like kill her or kidnap her and be like, hey, we have your friggin' sister here, your creepy little sister. We gotta.
That's actually
Weirding
exactly
way
what happens in the book. Is
gone.
she was captured.
Oh, yeah.
The Sardaukar went out and they raided a siege and they
Oh.
got her.
In
And
the movie,
That's not in the movie though.
in the movie, they're just like,
she just shows up there.
like,
yeah, she's
shut
a
up.
hostage. She's a hostage, and then they find out once she's within 15 feet of them that she's actually the sister of Muad'Dib.
Which in the movie they found out real quick because she came in right away and said, I'm Paul Muad'Dib's sister. You can tell by my blue eyes and crazy demeanor. We're going to destroy you. And they're like, oh no, what can we do about this girl? Nothing.
She kills the bear on the right. She pulls out like his balloon plug. Or
Yeah.
something.
His heart
He
plug.
flies away.
Yeah.
But he just like lets
Why
her.
does he have a heart plug?
I don't know.
I
And
think
they're like,
they just said off like we all get them here on Gadia Prime. I guess even the Baron. I don't know. It's not in the book. That's
Because they do
David
that to
Lynch.
the Mentat, right? And they tell him he needs to milk a cat.
Yeah, he's gonna
to like
he's got the
Milk a
cat
cat.
with the rat together.
So, for those who have no idea what we're talking about, they essentially poison one of the Mentats, and he needs to milk a cat to get the antidote every day by milking
why?
it, and then
That's
drinking.
like,
Otherwise
that's
he'll
like the
die.
exploding poison tooth where you're like, why? Why can't you just say he gets it somewhere else? Why does it have to be
Yeah.
milking a cat?
It's gotta be
That-
weird, man.
That's gotta
It's
be
David Lynch.
That's like the David Lynch. I'm gonna be weird just to be weird.
Yeah, right.
Shit.
Totally.
And
100%.
But like, I love the sister though. She comes in and they're just like, again, like the whale talks to the emperor of everything, and he's like, okay, sorry, didn't mean to disturb you. Go ahead, keep vaping, and I'll take care of everything. And then the little girl comes in, and he's like, a little girl. Oh no, she has blue eyes, and she talks weird. It's like he's powerless.
well,
against
they're all scared of the
everyone.
witches, though, right?
Yeah, everybody's scared of the witches because they use them like the Bene Gesserit witches have like a very high status in courtly life and society. They're used as truthsayers. They're advisors. They are concubines. They get married off, and really, there's the Bene Gesserit are just collecting genes. They're all about them genes to bring them back to try, and put them in the bank for their their Kwisatz Haderach secret weapon program that nobody knows
I
about.
mean, who wouldn't
except for
want
the
those
sister.
jeans, right? Bald, creepy ladies with the pop collars. That's the bloodline you want to really like focus on.
Yeah, I mean, David Lynch went. He did the whole, the whole look, which I think is kind of a cool
It's
look.
comical though sometimes.
It's weird, but I don't know. The future guys,
the
they're
head
into
witch,
that
the head
stuff, I
witch
guess.
lady has these comical reactions to stuff. Where like
Sister Mayim or Sister
Something will
Gaius
happen,
Helen
she'll go,
Mohayim.
I do like the Gom Jabbar scene though. That's cool.
What's the
Where-
Gom Jabbar?
it's classic,
Oh,
yeah.
Where he puts his hand in the box. And
What's in the box?
Back in the beginning, Paul
What's
is
in the
getting
box?
tested. Yeah.
Oh yeah, where
Yeah,
she melts his hand.
It shows his flesh.
Where she
burning
melts.
off.
She's like, can you feel the flesh melting off your hand? Just kidding. He's like, oh, she was just kidding.
All right. Let's get to the end here. So It sounds like you guys didn't care for it too much, but let's just go ahead and, for the record, let's draw a line in the sand. And what's the grade that you're going to give this? Is this would you give David Lynch The Water of Life or The Gom Jabbar for making this film?
Who would like to go first?
Nobody.
I'm going to go last.
Nobody wants to go first.
I'll go.
Brian, lay it on me.
He gets he does not keep his hand in the box and gets the gold bar. I give this a D.
Ooh, okay.
D for Dune. There's not many redeeming qualities about this film. I mean, the production's goofy and the story's too big to handle. It's just riddled with issues, But I look at this when we looked at something like The Warriors, like I could see myself rewatching that, just based on what I had a hard time getting through this the first time, and that's tough for me. Like I usually can sit through a lot of shit, and I had to do this in 2 different nights because it just was bad. It was pretty slow, and that's even me liking the story. So, aside from the few things I had to dig through the sand to find that I were okay about this, there's not a whole lot of spice in this. It's pretty bad. So
I like it.
Give it. I just pretty much would cut open my still suit and just die.
Brian gives moisture for the dead.
Yeah.
Greg?
Well, for me, okay. So I saw it back in the day, maybe a year after it came out, maybe less. When it came to cable or something. And I will say that all 3 of the first Star Wars movies came out before this movie pretty much doomed this movie on all fronts, because people were expecting a Star Wars like product and came and got this super weird kind of creepy, sort of badly realized, choppy, the effects are silly, it's the Hollywood always says that Hollywood is the best thing to happen to a bad book and the worst thing to happen to a good book. And the Star Wars scripts were these these kind of shitty hammered out things. He's not a good writer. Lucas isn't a good writer. He's a good imaginer and a creator of worlds. And a good borrower of shit from Dune. But
Thief.
so his scripts, when you read them, his dialogue isn't, I'd rather kiss a Wookiee. That can be arranged. Hey, it's shucky Catskill stuff. But the treatment they give it is so much more entertaining, and using miniatures and models and paintings and effects and mixing together was just cool, and it gave this layered effect, and it gave this sort of reality to some of the stuff. And then you get Dune that comes out later, and everyone's thirsty for some more Star Wars type fare, which Lucas has just told us we're not going to get anymore. He's done. The trilogy is done, and we get this weird chopped up thing with bad effects and super bizarre, unlikable groups of people. And so back then I felt like, oh well, it suffered for me because I'd seen Star Wars and I was expecting Star Wars, and I got a weird David Lynch movie that even he doesn't like. But going back and looking at it again, I'm like, it's just objectively bad. It's not good. I'm not expecting Star Wars anymore. I've had decades between when I first saw it and now, and I'm like, I just don't like it. It's poorly put together in so many ways, and maybe if he was allowed to do a 4-hour version of it and take his time and roll out the stuff in the way he did and not rush the hell out of the rest of the movie, it would have been like, oh, okay, this is more like it. But I kind of doubt it though too. I kind of think it would be more stuff that I didn't like. It would be 4 hours of crap that I didn't like instead of 2 hours and 15 minutes of crap I didn't like, So I mean, I give them a D for the audacity of trying it, because there is a huge amount of audacity and imagination that was put into it and subsequently wasted. But it's like everyone who tries to film, Don Quixote or something, it's always a disaster. I feel like I hope the Villeneuve ones are better. I haven't seen them yet or anything, but this one they shot for the moon and landed 16 yards away in a sand trap at a local golf course, and we're like, oh well, let's print it. So, send it. I'll give them a D for shooting for the moon, even if they landed in a local sand trap.
Another D for Dune. All right.
D for Dune.
What
Joshua,
say you, Josh, on this?
What do you think?
Do the voice.
I think you guys are being.
I'm here to give it an F.
I think you guys are being very generous to David Lynch on this film. So in a twist that nobody saw coming, I'm going to give this an F. F for Fremen. F for Fade Ralpha.
F for fuck were you doing? Fuck are you doing here?
I love Dune on so many levels, and I enjoy talking about Dune, and I've even enjoyed you guys shitting all over it. And there's a part of me, I think, pre-reading Dune, I would have given this movie like a B or a C.
Wait, what?
Like as a teenager, as someone who just like appreciated like this is a weird ass movie, but there's something about it that I found likable, warts and all. But after reading Dune, and after like digging in a lot more into it, even David Lynch hating it, the own product that he made, I don't see how you come back from that. This is a movie that I will come back to maybe once every 3 or 4 years just to check in on it. Just to see how that future me feels about it. I mean, I have a hard time making it through this, and I love Dune. So, and it's probably because I love it so much that this version rankles against me so much. There are things that I do enjoy about it still to this day. I love the sets. I love the costumes. I think it's a great cast. I think the performances that are given, they're over the top in many. They're over the top in many different many ways, but it's an interpretation of the characters in the book, and not like a terrible interpretation of the characters in the book. Just an interpretation that maybe most people don't really care for. But aside from that, the story is ludicrous. The special effects are dated before they even came out.
They're so much worse than Star Wars.
Yeah, it's and I think the two most egregious things that I think are just unforgivable are the voice weapons, the weirding module. That's bullshit. That makes for like a cool video game, but it's not in the book. It's a lazy stand-in for the actual like hand-to-hand fighting that was supposed to be like centerpiece of the universe and the necessity of like the limitations of technology. And then the last thing right at the end, the rain out of nowhere. Muad'Dib kills Sting, he kills Fade Ralpha, he ascends to the throne, he's going to marry Virginia Madsen, but still be in love with Chani. And then all of a sudden he gets a little cool knitted robe, and then all of a sudden it just starts raining all over Arrakis. Yeah, that's unforgivable, especially given how much actual science is in science and ecology that Frank Herbert took like pained to put into the book. The whole religion of the Fremens is that they're going to turn Arrakis into a paradise. But slowly, over thousands of years, none of them are going to live long enough to actually see it. And David Lynch just was like, nah, fuck it, cut to the end. Like, it's raining. Like, Muad'Dib, he just brought it. That's just unforgivable in my eyes. And so I'm standing by. This is a big fat F. Yeah.
Worst thing to happen to a good book.
Sorry, David
right?
Lynch.
Worst thing to happen to a good book. The book must be good because the movie's so bad.
Yeah. Doesn't change how I feel about, Frank Herbert or Dune as a franchise. And to the contrary, makes me enjoy the Denis Villeneuve version so much more. I don't know, but Greg, I think you're really going to enjoy the first Denis Villeneuve. And I have very high hopes for all of us for when the second one comes out. And so we'll definitely do a podcast. Maybe we'll do a podcast after the second one comes out. And and we can all talk about the second one. All right. Well, another one in the books. How about we use the old Rabbit Fighters randomizer to
Cue weird music.
figure out what we are watching or hearing.
We should get the voice for like the weirding module as our intro dice noise.
17, it's a weapon.
All right, here we go. We now have 27 items. 27 items on the spreadsheet. It's growing, so we're going to start whittling them down.
Man.
All right, here we go. I'm going to push the old macro here.
Come on,
7.
Steely Dan.
Which is no, sorry, not this time. It's going to be Life of Brian.
All right.
The I don't know what year that is, but
Life
it's
of Brian.
early
Yes.
80s, late 70s.
I think it's 1979.
Monty Python,
I think it's 79.
Life of Brian, banned in the UK, bankrolled by George Harrison of Wings.
George Harrison. Yeah.
Oh no, he's not in Wings.
He's not. It's the one thing he wasn't in. That's the one thing he wasn't in.
Yeah.
Of Ringo Starr's all-star band.
Bankrolled by George Harrison of a band.
George Harrison. Little band called
All right.
Oasis.
So who hasn't seen that? Brian? Brian has not seen Life of Brian.
No, I have not.
Brian is, of course.
I've only seen Holy Grail.
All right.
I think, did I suggest this one? I may have suggested this one because I love Monty Python. That's my big nerd streak. You have Dune as your big nerd streak. My big nerd streak is the Monty Python canon, if you will.
All right. Any parting words?
Goodbye.
What, Dave?